When hundreds of tractors rolled into Whitehall last night and brought Whitehall to a standstill, they weren't just making a point, they were making history. Because the protest against Labour's inheritance tax changes for farms is not about the usual tax debates that pit rich against poor. I know a lot of people in the comments want it to be so. This is about something far more fundamental, the survival of British farming and our national food security and the fate of our countryside. Yet, as is customary, of course, Nigel Farage spotted a camera and a cause and decided to drape himself in it. There he was, as ever, playing the role of the people's champion, this time in an ill-fitting farmer's costume, talking about death, taxes and whipping up a crowd. While Farage was busy making it all about him, real farmers like Liz Webster, who I know, were making it about the reality. And speaking to Sky News, Webster from Save British Farming dismantled the entire Farage-Trump fantasy with brutal efficiency. And she's absolutely right. Farage and his Reform UK acolytes, just like the Brexiteers before them, dream of a UK-US trade deal that would decimate British agriculture. They forget, or they conveniently ignore, that in any deal with the US it's not Trump but Congress that calls the shots, and Congress listens to its powerful farming lobby, which would have zero interest in protecting British farmers. The result? A flood of hormone-treated beef, chlorinated chicken and substandard food that would undercut British producers and ironically require more government intervention in supply chains just to keep British standards afloat. The problem is not just Farage's opportunism, but Labour's failure to see the bigger picture. And Rachel Reeves' plan to impose a 20% inheritance tax on farms worth more than £1 million is not, as some would have you believe, a simple case of ensuring fairness and that rich farmers pay as much as poor house owners. The reality is that land values are high, cash flow is low, and without relief many farms will not be passed down but will be broken up and sold, and the farmland will be squandered. This is not about taxing one group less than another. It's about preventing the destruction of an industry that feeds us all, and an industry that can feed us all. At the moment, we aren't so dependent on it, but we could be. History provides a stark warning. During the Second World War, Britain learned the hard way what it meant to rely on foreign food supplies. The Women's Land Army was mobilised to ensure that we could feed ourselves. My godmother was a member of the Land Army, and she always told me stories about it, and I remember vividly. In fact, I was pretty well brought up on a farm because of that. So now, in a time of global instability, we seem to have forgotten these lessons. And if we don't protect our farmers, if we don't prioritise food security, we will become dependent on others, on importers who may one day decide to do without their supply. Without farming, Britain will go hungry. It's that simple. It's not about taxing rich people or not taxing rich people. It's about whether or not we can provide for ourselves. And that is why this protest matters. This is not a fight over tax loopholes for wealthy landowners. This is a fight for the preservation of British agriculture. And farmers are not hedge fund managers or property speculators. As one protester put it last night, we are cash poor but asset rich. A farm is not just a financial asset, it's a living, working entity that sustains a family, a community, and ultimately a nation. And we are ignorant of history if we forget that fact. The political implications are serious. Labour's rural MPs are feeling the pressure, with many breaking ranks to demand a rethink, and the party's claim that only 500 farms a year will be affected is already being challenged, with figures suggesting the true number could be far higher. Even Britain's supermarkets, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Waitrose, have signed a letter warning that Labour's policy will jeopardise food supply chains. So what happens next? Reeves and Starmer have a choice. They can dig in and risk alienating an entire sector and damaging our future, or they can listen to the growing chorus of concern. A U-turn may not be imminent, but meaningful tweaks, as some Labour MPs have cautiously put it, seem increasingly likely. In the meantime, let's not allow Farage to rewrite history. He is not the farmer's friend. He backed Brexit, which sold them down the river. He's long admired Trump, whose America First policies would leave Britain's farmers second-class citizens in any trade deal. Yes, the EU treated farmers appallingly. in fact, in the end, and damaged farming a great deal for whatever benefits it brought initially. But leaving the EU added further damage to what farmers were facing. Farmers have had it bad over the last 15 years, really bad. And I know farmers who are literally trying to do everything on their own. Just two people managing an entire farm because they can't get work. It's pitiful, the way farmers are clinging on without help and now being taxed through the nose because of it. If Trump's policies would leave Britain's farmers second-class citizens in any trade deal, and now Farage is riding around in a borrowed tractor pretending he always cares. He doesn't. He hasn't. He doesn't care. He cares only about himself. And if you buy into his rhetoric and his performance, his theatrics, then you are buying into a lie. The fight is not about Farage. It's about the people who toil on this land, who rise before dawn and work long after sunset, who endure floods, droughts, economic uncertainty to put food on our tables. The fight is about the future of British farming. It's not about Farage, and it is far from over.